Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You wanted the full rundown on all the action from last night's NBA game, so we're diving deep into the key moments. We've got a lot to unpack, so let's get right to it. I'm telling you, there were some genuinely crazy results last night.
Yeah, I agree.
The Timberwolves just absolutely crushed the Nuggets. I mean, did anyone see that coming?
Not a chance.
And the Knicks, an overtime thriller against the Trailblazers. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time.
Oh, for sure.
So, to help us make sense of all the madness, we've got our expert with us today, ready to give us those in-depth insights we all crave.
It was a wild night in the NBA, there's no doubt about it.
Wild is an understatement.
And it wasn't just wins, those were statements, you know?
Yeah.
Those wins really raised some interesting questions about where these teams are headed. Like, what's the ceiling for the Timberwolves? Can the Knicks keep grinding out these close wins? Those are the kind of questions we're going to be looking at today.
Let's break it down, starting with that Timberwolves victory over the Nuggets. I mean, no one could have predicted that.
Nobody, and that's what makes it so fascinating. Everyone and their mother had the Nuggets walking away with an easy win. They've got that league-leading offense, right?
Right.
But the Timberwolves, they came out with this defensive intensity like a completely different team. And the way they were able to disrupt Jokic's passing lanes, genius. They forced the other Nuggets players to create their own shots. And let me tell you,
It wasn't pretty.
it was not pretty at all. Their points in the paint were way down, too. So it wasn't just a matter of individual defense. This was a calculated team strategy that completely threw the Nuggets off their game.
They really did their homework.
Yeah.
And Anthony Edwards, he was on fire. 29 points. And Rudy Gobert, I know he can be a bit of a controversial player, but he had another double-double.
He did.
For those who might be new to basketball, a double-double means double digits and two key stats. In this case, it was points and rebounds. That guy was a beast on the board.
Oh, absolutely. And even though Jokic put up a respectable 34 points for the Nuggets, the guy is a scoring machine. It wasn't enough to overcome that Timberwolves defense.
So I have to ask, with their sixth straight win, are the Timberwolves for real? Are they contenders in the Northwest Division?
Well, this win definitely puts them in the conversation. Holding the Nuggets, a team with that much offensive firepower, well below their usual averages, that's a big deal. But the real test is consistency. Can they keep up this level of play? Can they bring that same intensity against other top teams? We'll see as the season goes on, but this win definitely makes things interesting.
Okay, let's talk about another game that had everyone on the edge of their seats. The Knicks and the Trailblazers. That overtime finish was absolutely insane.
Oh man, talk about a nail biter. It was a back and forth battle the entire time. Both teams trading leads, hitting these clutch shots. It really came down to the wire. It shows you even a team that's rebuilding, like the Trailblazers, can still bring the heat and keep the pressure on.
And Karl Anthony Towns, he's really starting to find his groove with the Knicks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's only been a few weeks since that trade, but he's evolving in their system, and I'm really curious to see where it goes. But you also mentioned that the Knicks' depth was a factor in this win. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. When I talk about depth, I'm talking about players who can come off the bench and make a real difference. For the Knicks, it was guys like Emmanuel Quickley and Jericho Sims. Quickley provided this scoring spark off the bench, really crucial, and Sims was a monster on the board, snagging rebounds left and right. They weren't just filling in. These guys were making huge plays.
It really was a team effort. And even though the Trailblazers didn't get the win, we have to acknowledge Anthony Simons, right?
Yeah.
He was incredible. Really kept them in the game.
Absolutely. Simons was definitely a bright spot for the Trailblazers, showing off his scoring skills and really proving that even teams that are rebuilding can have players who can light it up. But at the end of the day, the Knicks just had that extra edge, you know? With their experience and their depth, they were able to execute their plays and stay calm under pressure when it mattered most.
Sounds like it was a combination of strategic plays and some very clutch contributions from the bench that gave the Knicks that edge. All right, so let's move on to the Spurs and the Mavericks now. What happened there?
Well, the Spurs actually managed to break their losing streak with a 126-116 win over the Mavericks. And De'Aaron Fox, let me tell you,
He was unstoppable.
he was on fire, putting on a show for those Spurs fans. The guy was just everywhere on the court.
I know, right? He almost had a triple-double.
Yeah, almost.
32 points, 11 assists, and 9 rebounds.
He's all over the place.
It was incredible to watch.
And, you know, it was more than just the stats, too. He was playing with this this real confidence. Like he was dictating the pace of the entire game, creating opportunities for his teammates left and right.
It felt like he was reading the Mavericks defense like a book.
Absolutely. And the Mavericks, well, they really struggled without Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis out there.
Yeah, those are two big pieces missing from their offense.
Huge, huge pieces. And it really showed.
Did anyone step up in their place?
Brandon Williams had a decent game. He put up 19 points.
19 points.
But it just wasn't enough to really match the Spurs' intensity.
They were just firing on all cylinders.
They were. They were capitalizing on all those Mavericks turnovers and their shooting percentage. It was through the roof.
Speaking of hot shooting, the Clippers really dominated the Heat last night.
Oh, yeah, 119 to 104. That's a statement win.
Bogdanovich had a phenomenal game.
He did. Season high 30 points for Bogdanovich. What a performance.
Yeah, Ivica Zubac, he was a beast out there.
Absolutely. Zubac was a force in the paint, 26 points, 14 rebounds.
A double-double for Zubac.
They could not stop him. It was a rough night for the Heat, though. They're now on a 5-game losing streak.
Ouch.
Tyler Herro, he tried to carry the team with 31 points, but just not enough to get the win.
It's tough when you're missing key players, like the Heat were last night.
It is. You really see how much depth matters in those situations. And, this actually brings up a really interesting point. The Clippers. They're looking really strong, even without Coach Tyronn Lue on the sidelines.
I know. It's impressive how they can maintain that level of play, even with their coach out.
Right. It really speaks to their team chemistry and how well they're playing together. All right, let's move on, shall we? Let's talk about that Grizzlies game against the Jazz. It was a close one.
Oh, yeah, down to the wire.
Down to the very last minute, and the Grizzlies managed to pull it off 122 to 115.
Some clutch plays at the end there.
Some incredible clutch three-pointers by Luke Kennard and Ja Morant. That's what sealed the deal.
Those guys were just sinking threes like it was nothing.
The energy in the arena, oh man, you could feel it. Kennard finished with 30 points, and Morant added another 28.
Wow.
And you know what I found impressive? They weren't just chucking up threes. These were smart, calculated shots taken within the flow of the offense. That takes a lot of discipline.
So a skill and strategy that won them the game.
Exactly. But let's talk about Colin Sexton on the other side of the court, playing for the Jazz. 115 points?
115 points. Are you serious?
I'm telling you, the guy was on fire.
That's almost unheard of.
It is. It was one of those nights where everything he touched just turned to gold. But even with that incredible performance, the Jazz couldn't get the win. It really just goes to show you individual brilliance. It's amazing. But it often comes down to teamwork.
It's a team sport, after all.
It is. So we've talked about some truly amazing individual performances tonight, like De'Aaron Fox. His control of the game was just impressive. What was it about his game that really stood out to you?
It was his playmaking, for sure. It wasn't just about scoring. He was setting up his teammates, controlling the tempo, making these smart decisions.
Yeah.
It really did feel like he had the entire game mapped out in his head.
You know what? It was almost like he unlocked this new level of basketball IQ last night.
It really did.
He was anticipating plays before they even happened, finding the open man, exploiting every weakness in the Mavericks defense. You could just see his leadership on the court.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about team strategies. We talked about the Timberwolves shutting down the Nuggets offense. But what about the Clippers? How did they manage to just dismantle the Heat like that?
Well, they really exploited the Heat's lack of size in the paint. They kept feeding the ball to Zubac and Bogdanovich, and the Heat just had no answer for them down low.
Smart strategy.
It was, and it definitely paid off. Speaking of strategy, the Grizzlies seem to have this clutch three-pointer thing down to a science.
It's like they can't miss when it matters most.
It's amazing. I think it's a combination of talent, for sure, because Kennard and Morant are both phenomenal shooters.
Oh, yeah.
But they're also incredibly disciplined. They wait for the perfect moment, the right shot, and they trust each other to make it happen.
It's like they're playing chess out there, not basketball.
I like that analogy.
So we're getting close to the end of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the key storylines you're following?
The battle for playoff seeding, for one. It's getting intense in both conferences. Every game counts from here on out. Oh, and for fans of a good underdog story, keep an eye on the Timberwolves. Can they keep up this momentum after that huge win against the Nuggets? Can they make a real run for the Northwest Division title?
That would be something else.
It would. What about you? What are you watching for in the East? Are the Celtics and Bucks still the favorites?
It's hard to say. The Sixers are definitely looking strong now that James Harden is back in the lineup.
Yeah, they're a threat for sure.
And never underestimate the Knicks, especially at home.
Oh, yeah. That home crowd can be a huge advantage. So much left to play for, you know? That's what makes the NBA so exciting. So, any bold predictions from you? Don't hold back.
Okay, let me think.
Hmm.
You know what? I think we might see a first-time NBA champion this year.
Oh, interesting. You really think so?
I do. There are a few teams out there that have the talent and the drive to make a deep run. I think this could be their year.
I like it. I like it. Any hints about which teams you've got your eye on?
I'm not giving away any names just yet, but I think the teams to watch are the ones with that extra hunger, that fire in their eyes, the ones that are playing with something to prove.
I'll be watching closely.
All right, so as we wrap up our deep dive into last night's NBA action, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
Don't just watch the game. Think about the game. Think about the why behind the action, you know? The strategies, the matchups, the coaching decisions. The more you understand the little things, the more you'll appreciate just how brilliant this game really is.
That's such great advice. It's so easy to just get caught up in the excitement, but when you take a step back and really analyze what's happening, it's a whole new level of appreciation.
Exactly. It's like
Okay,
you're
good.
not just a spectator anymore, you become a student of the game.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive. We'll be back soon with more in-depth analysis of the NBA. Until then, keep watching, keep learning, and keep enjoying the game.